Hello, thank you for joining.
Of course.
No, it's most of all job, of course, but we're always happy to accommodate events like this.
Click the clicker, it goes to the new slide. Click again, then the video is running, and then it just continues until it's done. It's just that with one slide where the two videos are, we need to wait until the one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good evening. Thank you all for joining a very special edition of BK Talks. A special edition initiated by one of our wonderful teachers, Job Schroen. He is sitting there. He's leading the Extreme Studio, and he has brought already some quite amazing guests to our faculty. I mentioned Shiguru Ban, Ai Weiwei, but I think tonight it's a crowning achievement to bring Yasmin here. Thank you so much for joining us here in Delft. So it's part of the BK Talks and, let's say, part of the activities of the Extreme Studio. The format of tonight is a short presentation. It may also be long, but that's up to you. Of Yasmeen Lari, and then a conversation first with three of our students, Berk Atsan, Robin Ringel. Yeah, there are a lot of fans here for you as well. That's very good. And Meris Kesaf. Thank you also for joining this. And of course, at some point, our moderator, Job, will open the discussion also to the audience. And I'm happy to see a packed Orange Hall. I'm not going to introduce our guest of honor and the student. You can see already a lot of information on the screen. But yeah, just a few words about Yasmeen Lari. I said we're very honored to have her here. There's this wonderful book that gives a lot of information about her ideas and about her projects. And I think, to be honest, she's relatively unknown in our part of the world. But there's a lot to learn from her. And I think the work she has been developing for many, many years still is an incredible source of inspiration. On a personal note, I've always been very intrigued by your project from the 70s, Angori Bach. I would love to go there at some point. We'll see if that becomes possible. We hope so. Because I think that's typically a project that we like to study and analyze in Delft, because there's a lot to learn from that. And the design of housing, of affordable housing, housing for those who have little or no means, I think, and many of you know that that's my conviction, I think that's the most important challenge for architects. So it's wonderful to have you here, because I think you are really a very important inspiration in that field. How can we as architects contribute to that great challenge to give everyone in this world a decent place to live? And I'm sure that will be one of the topics discussed tonight. But before we start the presentation and discussion, I would also like to give the floor to another special guest, Mr. Sulyuk Mustasantarar, till very recently the ambassador of Pakistan here in the Netherlands, in The Hague. But now he took up, 1 month ago, he told me, a new role, also in The Hague at the International Organization Against the Proliferation of Chemical Weapons, another very important task. I would like to give the floor to you to just say a few words, and thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, Dean, for the opportunity, and thank you for inviting and Job and everybody. As you mentioned, till recently, I was Pakistan's ambassador to the Netherlands, and I had actually graduated as an architect from National College of Art from Lahore. So that's my association with art and architecture. And I've been in contact with Job for about 2 years now, and really became a fan of his. And so I think bringing Yasmeen Lari was one of my last projects here, and I'm so happy that it has worked, because earlier last year in 2024, Job and I started talking about her, and we were trying to trace her. Although I come from Pakistan, I live in another city, Lahore. She has worked mostly in Karachi. So I've never met her as such. So through some common architects friends, I reached out to her, and we really found her to be very kind and generous and forthcoming. And we started with some video conferences, and here we are. So thank you for the opportunity, and I also look forward, and thank you for organizing my meeting with Yasmeen Lari here in Delft as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you both for your wonderful introduction. I have to add 1.5 minute of gratitude for the new institute, because they have been helping a lot with this, organizing this. And next week, Yasmin is also joining them with Marina Tabassum as well. And also thanks to some of our sponsors, Boosting, and you know who you are. But I think we should get on. And maybe, Yasmin, can I ask you to do the presentation?
Yes, of course, with pleasure. Great. Yes. Well, hello everybody. I hope you're well. It's very cold here. That's the only thing I know. But nice and warm here. So it shows there's a warm heart here. So that's nice. And the building is amazing. So thank you so much, Dean Dick Van Cameron. Am I pronouncing it rightly, his name?
Sorry?
Dick Van
Cameron.
Dick Van Cameron? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you, Seljuk, for saying, bringing me here. And so thank you, Job, also for everything. And I must say that it's such a pleasure to be here in this wonderful, sprawling campus. It's such a huge campus, TU Delft is. But more amazing is your building where you're working. And it's such a pleasure to come and see what's going on and how students are being able to do things. So it's a great pleasure for me to be here. And also to see the kind of research that's going on and trying to find solutions to the challenges being confronted by all of us in this changing world. And I think you young people are more aware of the challenges that probably we are, because you know how the world is now shaping up. And it's very disturbing, I think. So the title, as you know, is End of Poverty. And this is not necessarily the topic that might be uppermost in your minds. I'm not sure how many of you are thinking about it. But being citizens of the global world and a sensitive people, you must be aware that poverty is a topic of great concern around the world today. As architects, you may yourself not have come across the levels of deprivation and disruptions that are prevalent in some countries. But you must know that no country today is safe from rising disparities. It's happening everywhere, however the wealthy country there might be. So global poverty statistics, if I may quote, inform us that 3.3 billion people can be considered poor globally, based on different poverty thresholds, and 42% of the world's population lives in some form of poverty or economic vulnerability. And the reason why UNDP's Sustainable Development Goals rank no poverty as goal number 1, as you know. Now, being a resident of the global south, I witnessed the devastating effect of abject poverty, and thus establishing egalitarian communities has become paramount for me. As an important objective of humanitarian assistance, I find it essential to find ways to liberate marginalized communities from spatial, socio-economical, ecological, and also cultural tyranny. This is going on everywhere. However, the global north is also facing increasing disparities and deprivations. The capitalist neocolonial system continues its extractive ventures, depleting the earth's resources, exacerbating eco-bigotry, encouraging excessive consumption, and relentless greenhouse gas emissions. You know that we're not really getting there. I mean, net zero and getting to 1.5 degrees Celsius rise is not happening in the near future, from what I see. So we're in real trouble. And it's no longer unusual to see many homeless people on the streets of affluent cities. The ghettoized population in the US, climate migrants displaced by wildfires in Los Angeles, and conflict-driven refugees seeking asylum in wealthy countries. You see the evidence all over. So my question to you is, are you ready to deal with the challenges that humanity is facing with these really turbulent times? As architect for the poorest of the poor, as I am, I would like to share my experiences seen from the lens of the global south. That's the experience I bring to you. My design abilities are increasingly focused on fostering co-creation and co-building. I design with a view to empower the voiceless and place destitute communities on the path to self-reliance. My vision is for architecture to become a means for creating just societies through the adoption of democratic norms and procedures. How much of it might be relevant to your lives, you will need to determine yourself, gleaning the principles that I have used to implement my strategies. Slide, please. May I have my slide? So, I thought I'd bring my journey for you from a corporate, what they call star architect, in 2000 to a humanistic humanitarianism. So it was a major, and you see the first building is what I used to do, as you see before year 2000. So it was a major 7.6 Richter scale earthquake in 2005 that led me to participate in a life-changing experience when I helped build a couple of thousand seismic-proof houses using debris from collapsed buildings in the mountainous terrain of northern Pakistan. And you see the little structure that was built at the time. And it was major floods from 2010 that the reality of poverty levels in my own country that led me to devise Barefoot Social Architecture, or BAZA, for fostering self-reliance and to revisit international colonial charity model, which I felt was not working. It was not delivering. To deal with 2010 flood led to adoption of humanistic humanitarianism, a different kind of humanitarianism. And its core values derived from BAZA led to seeking inspiration from past vernacular traditions. My work is very much influenced by what has been there before. So vernacular traditions, the way people did things, the techniques they were used are very much part of what I try to do today. I'm learning from that and applying it for today's solutions. And this is how, because of tradition, I've got this bamboo cross-brace construction as well as promotion of self-building activity that all comes from vernacular traditions that we have in my country. And every country has very strong vernacular traditions. We may have forgotten about them, maybe we don't look at it, but I think the time has come for us to look back and see what was relevant then, because it is going to be relevant today because of climate change. So I was also compelled to seek inspiration from 5,000-year-old Mohenjo-daro. We have this Bronze Age city, to popularize elevated structures. If you have flood, the best thing is you elevate everything, and then the floods will not affect you so much. Or on raised plinths or platforms. For safety of households, it becomes essential to build community structures on bamboo stilts, and that's where you see, I've tried to bring in little icons to show you how I was dealing with the problem. And as donor fatigue set in for international NGOs or INGOs, in 2012, I got a chance to provide training for structures which would be 1/3 or 1/4 of the usual cost that the international organizations were spending, because they were going for high carbon, high cost structures. And thus I was able to build 40,000 earth masonry structures with bamboo roofs, making it the largest zero carbon shelter program in the world, along with testing the potential of lime stabilized earth masonry and, basically double-story structures as well. And I think that's what I learned at that time, that money, it's better if there's no money or very little money. Best if there's no money at all. And that is when you find the solution that you need. Otherwise, you tend to splurge and you feel, it doesn't really matter. But it does matter, because that means that you have to extract more to build if it's expensive. So from 2016 to 18 and even later, the years were devoted to testing the potential of, this kind of bamboo resilience and a large hangar-like zero carbon center that you see in one of the slides that I've got here, which is all prefabricated bamboo structure. And also the use of thatch, which is a wonderful natural material that surpasses many industrialized materials. And I think in Europe too, you had great tradition of thatch. It's still there. And then, of course, the massive 2022 flood led to implementing humanistic humanitarianism towards the target of sustainable rehabilitation of 1 million households at a time. That's what I'm trying to do now. And I'll touch upon that. So, next one, please. I'm sure you're familiar that impact of disasters, how it disrupts lives, and how women and children are particularly affected. And it's very difficult, really, to then, come up. So in Pakistan and other industrially developing countries, we have seen how disasters actually destroy lives. And as you can see, it usually means loss of all their possessions, and with rising poverty levels, their vulnerability increases. So the next time you have a disaster, they can't handle it because they have nothing left. And the picture on the left portrays the state of helplessness and penury that people are facing as part of what I call a barefoot ecosystem. There's so much poverty that this becomes a real ecosystem where people have to work with each other and can actually help each other. Now, this consists of majority of people in my country. Usually, international aid ambition is to go and immediately start giving them handouts. That's the first kind of action that we all do because we feel something we can do to help, and the best thing is just give out something, a handout. And, and that which is, it turns them into beggars and robs them of their self-esteem. We must remember that even the poor have a great deal of pride, and the moment they start accepting handouts, that's all gone. And so they've lost the most important element that can help them to survive and go ahead. And then over the last decades, we've seen so much assistance being dumped into emergency aid and international non-government organizations, flying in with solutions that they think will be the best for affected communities. This happens all the time. Especially architects feel that they know what is best for you. This is how we are trained. But here I think you have to change your attitude. And then, although with best of intentions, also these fly-in solutions invariably fail to have long-term impact. It might help you a little bit, but then it's not sustainable. It is often said that in spite of the enthusiasm and goodwill of various international agencies coming in to provide assistance, however, the model is based on charity and is directed on mostly building of houses with expensive materials and techniques. And it's also very high carbon. And then there is seldom any attempt to create a holistic model in order that people could rebuild their lives. Because you must remember, when a disaster happens, you've lost everything. It's like really starting your life anew. You have to do everything afresh. And that's what it is then, that you need everything. And then most of the time, there is no expertise in the disaster area for such construction that is introduced, which is local. Thus, the affected community cannot continue to process once the funding comes to an end. How do they proceed forward? They don't have the skills. The techniques that are given to them are something that's alien. And so they can't do anything themselves afterwards. So everything comes to an end. We also know that in search of safe solutions, construction techniques are based on concrete and steel construction, or at best burnt brick masonry, which all are high carbon. If you look at these materials and how much emission there is in their production, it's horrifying. 40% of the emissions are caused because of the way that we as architects and engineers build all over the world. And we have to remember that then we have to give up those materials because, with high carbon, it results in exacerbating the climate challenge, and we have to now take care of it. So in order to seek a sustainable solution, it was important for me to delve into traditional ways of building using local, non-polluting materials and low-impact techniques, not industrialized machinery or equipment. Everything done by hand, mostly. Just as when we see injustices being perpetrated, we don't wait for any instruction. We move forward and help to provide, basically redress. How can we help people? My question to you is, what about spatial, social, ecological, and cultural injustices? When you find that they're there, don't you feel you need to go and help out? I think these are also issues that should concern us in today's world. So as a humanitarian architect, long ago, I have given up any desire to work only when commissioned. I don't wait for any commissions. In a changing world, I believe that all of us need to become champions of causes. We cannot just stay and be in our comfort zone and only work and do things when somebody asks us. We need to get out there and help where we feel design help is necessary. It is in so many places. So I often say, why should architects feel compelled to vie for patronage of powerful entities such as in the past? There were the sophisticated Medicis of Florence, the unscrupulous robber barons of colonial powers, the eco-indulgent merchant princes of industrial revolution, nor the present day's multinationals and tech giants that promote high carbon lifestyles. That's who architects are working for. Is that the right thing? Should we be doing it? Should we continue to do this? These are the questions. So would you not agree that it is time for our profession to transform itself to begin serving humanity instead of just the privileged few? Rather than waiting for commissions, should we not leverage our design ability to tackle issues that are impacting the world, such as climate change, humanitarian crisis, environmental degradation, and so many more, where design capability is needed, and that's what architects have. This is the best tool that we have. And you need more design when there are deficiencies. You need more design if you work for people who are marginalized than design for the elite and the rich. And somehow we've forgotten that. So confronted with the changing world order, is it not time to become proactive and tackle the widespread ecological tyranny, or as champions, activists, vigilantes, and crusaders? So, well, I'll see how we move forward now. So you will find the barefoot theme persisting in my work. The Baza is the basis for creation of egalitarian communities by adopting 3 Ds, which is decolonize, decarbonize, and democratize. So we should replace the international charity-driven model with humanistic humanitarianism, achieving self-reliance by focusing on low-impact, low-tech methodologies, utilizing local sources and ancient wisdom. There's a lot there that we can always refer to and get inspiration from. And then devise climate-smart methodologies, design zero-carbon structures, sequester carbon in materials, and, basically soil and wetlands, and prevent extractive procedures to help heal the planet. And then democratize. So rehabilitation process by fostering co-building and co-creation, etc. You can read it all, I've put it all down there. So now, and then, next please. Now, in a paradigm shift from the international charity model to peer-driven humanistic humanitarianism is the basis for large-scale sustainable rehabilitation of hundreds of thousands of households displaced due to flood 2022. That's what I'm trying to do now. It is the humanist attributes of empathy, solidarity, compassion, and generosity, practiced by barefoot experts, sharing knowledge and expertise that is transforming the mindset from a crisis, from a cycle of dependence to a culture of self-reliance. That is the key. We should create self-reliance among people who we feel are victims. And I often say that they are displaced, but they are not disabled. They can do things if they are guided to, and that's all that they need. Not necessarily the money. Now, the main attributes of such strategy are doing away with handouts and dependence, instead enable empowerment and self-reliance. Instead of being treated as victims, its affected communities become partners in development and building zero-carbon, low-tech structures and able to achieve social and ecological justice. This can all be done if we do it right. So basically, I'm saying no to handouts, yes to empowerment, no to dependence, yes to self-reliance, no to treat the disabled as victims, but enable them to become partners in development, foster self-building, zero-carbon, low-tech structures, and above all, foster, as I said, social and ecological justice. So, and on the left, I think are some of, there are some of the prototypes. Just a moment, what do I have here? That have been built to provide safety from floodwaters. Since Pakistan is affected by water related... Oh, I'm sorry, I think we've gone to another slide. Yeah, this is the one. Can you relate back to what I said? I'm sorry, I didn't look at the slide. So just, but now you can see the one that are zero-carbon prototypes that have been built to provide safety from floodwaters. Now, since Pakistan is most affected by water-related disasters, we get earthquakes also, but the most common are the water-based. And all the structures are elevated to provide refuge from floodwaters. The stove is built on a raised earthen platform. You see on the left is the stove. Just a simple stove. It's earthen. Women do it themselves. And there's something like, I think at least 900,000 of them have been built by women by themselves. This is the whole thing. It's all self-driven, and it's something that gives them dignity. So it provides them safety, etc., etc. So design on stilts that you see, of course, it provides safety for household goods and for households themselves as well as people. And then we have refuge platforms and all kinds of structures which will give you refuge, so you don't have to leave your village in case the waters become too high, because you can never foresee the next disaster. Every time it's much worse than the last one. So although we try to build according to what we have suffered, but on the other hand, we have to be extra careful now. So, and you have a floating structure there as well, because a time is coming in my own country where we never used to have that kind of flood, but now we have experienced something like that. So it may be converted into floating communities as we were discussing earlier. So there's all that has to be considered. So sorry, now the next one. I'm sorry, I didn't see the slide before. So this is the nexus of architecture and justice. So again, you can see the range of disasters that I put down there that we can all be confronted with, but it is really water-related disasters, such as the sea level rise, floods and droughts. That is a matter of grave concern in many, many countries. And then in case of Pakistan, the recent flood 2022 led to destitution and hunger for almost 20 million people in my province alone. You can see in this diagram the impact of such a calamity, because everything is lost. You have no livelihood, you have nothing to eat, you've lost your livestock even, so it's really nothing but destitution. So then the magnitude of 22 flood, having wiped away all in the path of the flood in 1/3 of Pakistan, left us literally with a clean slate. Because once the waters receded, there was just nothing there. The question for me was to create a template which would enable rebuilding lives from scratch. The resultant methodology is based on the nexus of architecture and justice to lead to zero poverty without hurting the planet. I mean, you can always do a lot of things, but every time we have to be careful that it's not in any way damaging or it's not extractive to the degree where it's going to, create more emissions. And that is the big challenge for all of us, wherever you are building, wherever you are doing. So here's the story of Pono village, which you see on the right. Beginning from a state of destitution in September 2022, you see how everything was submerged through application of humanitarian principles and utilizing the potential of human, natural, and waste resources at a cost of only $150 per family. 8,000 families have become self-sufficient. This is the holistic assisted model. Now, as we know, after such disasters, when there is nothing but destitution, it is not a matter of providing them only with shelter. It is much more than that. It is about rebuilding lives from scratch, as I said earlier. And for those living in floodplains and in the path of predictable disasters, it is important to find ways to enable them to be prepared for the next disaster so that they are not displaced. They can stay in the village itself. And this requires a holistic approach which lifts them out of poverty, dependence, and assures a dignified life in the future for them. So next slide, please. Now, if you see on the left is my poverty escape ladder. Now, through the design of the poverty escape ladder and a structured program which relies on peer-to-peer knowledge transfer, the journey from destitution to SDG number 1, which is no poverty, it became possible. This was my assisted holistic model. Okay. Now, first step, as you can see on the first row there, with the icons, it consists of fulfillment of basic needs for each family, climate-resilient one-room bamboo houses, along with a shared eco-toilet, water supply and solar lighting, as well as earthen smokeless Pakistan chula stove that serves clean food, all items that are essential for women in order that they could achieve privacy and dignified living. Sometimes you forget how important it is for women to have all these, and they must be there for them. Now, the second step ensures food security, because that's another thing. But if you get a house, you get everything else, but you don't get food, well, how are you going to survive? So that is very essential. And so we begin by growing vegetables, start rearing chickens, and breeding fish in domestic wells, because it's floodplain. If you dig a hole, you have water. You can start breeding fish there. That's what's happening. So It enables them to barter their extra produce, and they get grain and other things as well. Now, if you see later on the slide, which is step 3 and 4, which is at the bottom, which is about environmental stewardship. It consists of Miyawaki-style community forests with indigenous trees. I don't know whether you're familiar with the Miyawaki-style forest, but it's amazing because you plant trees, indigenous trees, very close together, and they grow like anything. So within a couple of years, suddenly you have a whole forest growing. And there are all these techniques that are available, and we need to use them. And then agricultural produce is there that leads to enhanced biodiversity. So, and the fourth step is designed to prevent excessive havoc from floods. That's another thing. Rather than treating it as a foe, maximum advantage is to be taken by absorbing flood and rainwater into the soil, along with a series of rain harvesting tanks that have helped transform village environments from desolation to abundant greenery. And that's also possible if we really use water carefully. It is a blessing in many ways, and we somehow tend to forget that we need to really conserve it in any way that we can. And that also helps. And again, in China, there's this amazing professor who's done, I think, 50 cities, which are known as sponge cities, that I mentioned to you yesterday. And, so it's possible for us to absorb water into the soil rather than fighting with it or treating it as an adversary. And then it becomes a real resource. And then my step 5 is many households are engaged in specialized income generation activities that are based on barefoot enterprises. They are making low-cost, affordable products for marketing them in surrounding poor villages. They only sell to the poor. I've told them not to bother about the rich. We don't need them. And it works very well, I have to tell you. They're all making money who are able to make these products and sell them. These are affordable, economical, sustainable. And so I think we have about 50,000 people who have reached SDG number 1, no poverty, in about 12 months. Well, I should say 12 to 18 months, right? So maybe the next one, please. So then, so there are many factors. Maybe you get the animation going. Yeah, that's it. This is the log that students of architecture mostly are going to be building from tomorrow, of bamboo. So there it is. So there are many factors that have led to sustainable rehabilitation and self-sufficiency in a short duration for destitute families, although there are many disaster-resilient prototypes that I have designed. However, the best innovation I find is the use of contemporary prefabrication applied to resilient, traditional kind of cross-bracing wood that is called theji. The module bamboo prefab design, modular, has built-in quality control, greater speed in production, as well as wide outreach. It's very versatile, and as you can see, you can have different kind of domes and roofs and everything. But what you need to see also is that it's just a basic skeleton that you will be making, that students will be making half scale from tomorrow. But then you can treat it as you wish. It is the skeleton is strong with bamboo, and then you can cover it either with canvas or with like they do with matting, and then you make it all very beautiful by decorating it, and you personalize each one of them. And I think that's what's important. That's how you give, control in the hands of people. So on the right, you will see my Pakistan chula, the stove. Now, a structure that has had the most far-reaching impact, in my view, in my work, is the earthen Pakistan chula stove. And it's been built by rural housewives. Each one is unique, providing agency to those who had, been voiceless in the past. So you see, she creates a garden she never had, and she proudly sits on her earthen throne. It is elevated. It is like a throne for her, which is entirely her own domain, which she has proudly decorated using her creativity. Or she, and you can see in the other one, she sculpts these celestial figures to recreate a world of her dreams. It is as if, for the first time in her life, she has agency, which she expresses through her unique earth paintings. And this is what we do when we give up control to people. Then they do it in a manner that's far more creative and that touches their lives more than what we could give them. So next, please. I just brought these pictures for you to show that it's not just, trying to live basically have a few things in life, but creativity is also something that's very important in people's lives. So it is due to application of humanist principles in humanitarian assistance that has brought about social transformation while rebuilding lives. It's been happening all through this time, these 2 years. The confidence in their own ability, employing their dormant creativity, is a result of the pride that each household feels in leading a secure and productive life. And you can see this aspect of co-building, co-creation, as well as unlocking the potential of human, natural, and waste resources has fostered self-reliance. Everything is built by themselves. And can-do attitude where they know they have full control over their lives, and above all, they are not beholden to anybody for what they have achieved through their own effort. If you give them that power, that feeling, that confidence, then you are a winner, actually. So the top picture is of a 13-year-old Kamla. She's the one who painted this whole mural because she one day decided she wanted to decorate it. And there she is. This is center in Pono village, and so on. And on the lower side, and the slides that are lower, you can see on the bottom, how proudly they teach visitors to use earth materials and organic colors for earth painting. So on the left, you have, people from Malawi who came for training, and then on the right, you have an international group of high art experts, and they came and they all worked together to make these drawings. So on the right, if I may show, is the band of roaming school theatre group. If you could just run the video on the right, on the top one, sorry. I think top one. Yeah, this is the one. So this is a school in that area where they literally have nothing much, and this is a roaming theatre group that goes and performs in another village and brings joy to everybody who have had nothing. So I think the whole life cycle has to be something that will help them and lift them out of all this. And then at the bottom, you again see there's a village festival, and if maybe you can run that a little bit also, which is again at the bottom. Yep, can you just, yeah, there it is, yes. So again, joy in life. You've recovered, now you have things that you need, and you don't need anymore. And that's what building lives is all about. So basically, for me, the question for me has been to find a way to reduce poverty in my country while dealing with natural disasters as well as the injustices that the poor are confronted with. It is only the application of values of humanism, the 3 Ds, decolonize, decarbonize, and democratize, and the 4 zeros, which are zero carbon, zero waste, zero charity, that lead to zero poverty. And in a zero charity model, I haven't done the whole thing for you here. It's a little bit complicated, but there's a zero charity model which is helping me to reach that 1 million households. And so that means that 7 million people have become food sufficient and flood secure, and are on their way to become fully rehabilitated within another couple of years, reaching SDG number 1, that is no poverty, with no money. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It is so nice to have you here. And I have to tell you, yesterday we met, the 5 of us, in the hotel of Yasmin, and we were talking, and it went really well. And at some point I said, well, I think I have to leave, and I left you. I don't know how long you kept on talking. It felt like it was, sort of, you were connecting in such a nice way.
Questions, so
yeah. So I'm so happy to have you here, because I feel like we have a generation of students who really are trying to make a difference. Like you are an activist, architect. And that is so inspiring to hear how you are doing that. And I think we should try to go to the questions of the students as quickly as possible, because I know that they are very interesting. Merit, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. And it's even more, I understand even more after the talk we had yesterday. And I had a question, but I think I want to ask now another question. Is like now here at the faculty, and we're all students, and we want to focus on this more on humanitarian architecture, and less putting our ego up front and work at a big firm or something. And for example, I'm doing that now with the project that I'm working on. But how can I work further with this? Like, how is it possible if you as a student or me as a student want to work on this? How can I also sustain myself in a way?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question, and I've heard it many times from students, but I do have a chance to talk to a lot of students and young people who want to now change the direction of how they want to think about architecture. I think the definition of architecture has got to change. It can't remain what it used to be, last century when I graduated. And this is something that I'm not putting. Dean is here, so I think it's wonderful that he's here, and I can ask him the question then. You're turning away, sir. But I think it's very important today for us all to help young people who want to go into a direction where it's not a cut and dried path to fame, if you like. And the tech industry does a lot of things. It has these incubators where young people are nurtured. They're given 2 hours or 2 years or 3 years where everybody helps them to get funding and to do the things that they want to do. Now, why is it that in our profession that we can't nurture our young who don't want to take the normal path and change the direction? That in universities, you've got lots of space. You have more space here than I see in other universities. So why is it that we can't allocate some space for groups of young people who want to, let's say, work in communities? Mm-hmm. There are marginalized communities everywhere. Let's say you want to do that, or you want to change the urban design, make it into eco-design or something. And if there was funding available from corporate sector, there's a lot of money there. Building industry is not poor at all. And if the institute, is anybody here from the Institute of Architects here at all? So they would be the third partner I would like. And so if the university backs them and provides them the space and mentorship, which they'll need that, and then institutes can direct the funding from the building industry into this, then they should be paid because they're professionals now. They can't do it for free. They can't be doing pro bono work like I do. I mean, this is not the right thing. So how can we all help them to do it? I think that's the big question. And it worries me because I talk about these things. We have to find a way for them, Otherwise, how will things ever change? I mean, there's no practices that do only this. Every practice is about, star architecture. So
yeah.
I think that's a genuine question. We need to think about this, right?
Yeah. So I'm really happy to be able to tell you that we're starting a new graduation studio on humanitarian architecture in November. So that's a start. But
what about funding?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it's always a challenge.
There's so much funding available that goes to waste. Why is it that it can't be directed for the young people? I mean, every building industry is making a huge amount of money by producing these high carbon materials, which are hurting in every way.
Yeah.
Well, they should pay a fine of some kind. I mean, they should be kind of carbon, whatever, like the carbon credit. Mm-hmm. I think they should be fined and say, well, we need to now change the world.
I have to say that Meric and her team have been working on a prototype house for Turkey after the earthquake of 2 years ago, and they had a lot of funding from the industry. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it's enough, but it's enough for one prototype. And almost.
I think we need more.
Yeah, but it's something that needs to be developed. So, what do you think, Meric? What are you going to do after graduation?
That's exactly now the moment where I'm thinking about on how to work further, because we want to continue with such a project of helping other people, and I think it's a bit the same as sort of helping people after a disaster. And now we're at the crossroad, like how are we going to go further? So I'm still in search.
Yeah, what happens to them afterwards? After they've done this experiment, they're into humanitarianism, and then there's no pathway for them. So if you teach them, if you're training them, I mean, obviously you are training, I mean, there's so much experiment going on, so much of research going on. So this is the right university who can really, I think, change the direction of how young graduates should start performing, you know? And I think we need to think about this seriously. Because after you open their minds to things, and then there's nothing more for them, that's not fair.
For sure, yes.
Yeah.
So it's a nice challenge for us.
Yeah, and for Institute of Architects also, I think you should approach them.
Yeah.
And for the building industry, why aren't they paying their price for this? You know, they have to do it. I mean, they're promoting concrete and steel and everything. You know, why are they doing it? Well,
shall
yes.
I feel challenged. Can I?
Yeah, of course.
No, I think it's wonderful, let's say, your presentation and how you challenge us, because these are indeed the big questions. I hope we have a slow, let's say, development. It's too slow. We should speed up in the direction you are advocating. Maybe just one example, which I like, is because you also make this big plea for we have to rethink what materials we use. We can't keep on depleting the earth. So we are going to take over next year the botanical garden from chemical technology, because we say it will be the test area for new building materials. But it's also a slow step, and because the challenge is huge. And I think also, how can we? I wish I had the answer, because I know, and I do appreciate that many students want to continue, let's say, contributing to these big challenges. How can you do it? I think we need also you to think about that, how we can start doing it. One thing I think is a step that we set up more and more collaborations with students, universities in the Global South, in India, in Africa, Bangladesh, with our professor Marina. I think already that exchange, bringing the students there, bringing the students from over there here, helps also working together, trying to find ways to address these challenges.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
I personally kind of want to shift the topic to the people actually living there in the zero carbon architecture model. So as I understand, also in your 1975 social housing models, there were some elements that are fully focused on Pakistani culture and also Islamic culture, where there were some secluded terraces, some semi-private balconies. But as I understand, in your zero carbon architecture model, now you envision more a commune living kind of way, where the toilets are shared, the kitchens are shared. I am thinking in a human perspective as a user there, is there a philosophical shift in your viewing of a living space now, or do you actually envisioning a space after SDG 1 goal is reached, people will also create their own private terraces at some point?
Well, that's a good question. I think you're throwing a challenge to me now to say, why did I shift? But there was no shift, actually. Oh, sorry. There was no shift, actually, because at that time, I was designing social housing for a whole community. And it was sponsored by the government. So, and I was driven by what I saw in our old towns, such as Lahore, where our friend, ex-ambassador, hails from. And it's a most wonderful experience to walk in those towns. That's where you have the terraces, multi-level terraces, there's privacy, women can do their jobs in that, and so on and so forth. And I thought I wanted to replicate that. And so it was a different kind of project. Now, architects always respond to the context, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't apply one solution. There's never a solution that you can apply elsewhere. The work I'm doing for the communities that are just washed away is very different. And also because the scale is so large, and literally I find there is no funding for them. Because the funding let me correct myself. There is funding, but the funding is misused. For instance, today in Pakistan, in my province, 750,000 millions or something is available. 750 million is available, right? Now, that is a lot of money, but it's all being spent on high carbon structures. And so it's not going to solve the problem. There'll be a lot of pilferage, we know. A lot of money will never get to the people they need. And why should people be given these very hot brick or concrete boxes to live in?
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
And this is the tragedy, that it's not the money that's not there. The money is misused. And that's why I feel it's better, countries such as mine, that we just bypass everything. Do it directly with the people, let them use their own resources, and we can get it done. And so, this is the solution I found. But when you work, maybe you'll find another solution.
No, exactly. I'm totally impressed by how community actually took pride in what they did, like how they included their crafts as on top of the facade with their mud, using just three main materials, bamboo, lime, and earth, how they made their own thing. And I feel like community now, with your technique, take more pride in it. So I think it's the perfect way right now. Yeah, exactly.
I think so. I think they're happy doing it, and they feel they're in charge of their own lives, which I think is very important.
Yeah. Can I ask you, some of my students are just returned from Namibia. We did a project there, and one of the things we encountered was that the people there sometimes really prefer sort of a Western way of building, so they would prefer zinc roofing. They might want to have air conditioning if they could afford it. And there's a super rich history of vernacular architecture, and we, being slightly optimistic and naive, maybe, were sort of going like, well, why not use that? And it's so difficult for us to find out why. How can we? What should we do for these people to understand that the old solutions sometimes maybe work better than the new solutions? And how would you go about that? What would be your advice there?
Well, that's of course is always a challenge, but I do believe that it's really INGOs and the UN system that has somehow given the impression that there is enough money and that they should be using urbanized models. And so when I wanted to do my mud and bamboo, as I said, I was lucky. International Organization of Migration, who finally got us their technical partners, had run out of money. And they didn't know how to put in the figures that they were supposed to. And so I was able to promote this bamboo, but there was a lot of opposition. And my trick was to say, I built the mud structure and we put bamboo roof on it. And then we had this bunch of people in the household, 10 or 12 of them. And I said, well, climb over it. Mm-hmm. They climbed over it and it was secure and they felt fine. Yeah. And so you have to prove sometimes to them that this is equally good, if not better. Mm-hmm. And I think another issue is that all of us, we must understand, are aliens. Even if I go to my village, I'm an alien to that village. I do not belong there. I come from another culture, it could be another country. And if any of you go there, you will obviously be aliens. And then if you're an alien, then you are there to give. Why are you there? So the trick is, what I found is, I've got this peer-to-peer transfer of knowledge. So it's people who've gone through the same tragedy. They've now recovered, they've learned what to do, so we train them and say, you go and tell them this is the right way to do it. And that's how we're making the progress. And then they are my barefoot experts, so they charge a small amount of money. They are all earning very well, I have to tell you. They're charging that small bit of money, right? But that helps people to attain knowledge, and they're grateful to get that knowledge. But if I went there, they'll say, well, give us something. Why should we do it? Mm-hmm. Why are you here? So I think we just have to use ways to manage it.
Yeah. I think it really connects to the point we were discussing.
Exactly. Yeah. I might also... Does this one work? Or not? Yeah? Okay. I might have a follow-up on that aspect. working with people and local communities so much, there's this very fine line between providing support and also sort of imposing solutions or imposing designs, both from a Western gaze that we have, but also as an architect or coming from a different background maybe. So I would be really curious how you navigate this tension in your work between granting people dignified living conditions or housing conditions, like without really being paternalizing about the way people should live in a way.
Sorry, you have to explain a little bit more. I didn't quite understand.
Sorry, so it's about in working with local communities.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that, the contrast between imposing solutions or in a paternalizing way almost, or and by giving them dignified housing solutions, but from a very different angle and very different perspective that we ourselves have?
Well, for me, of course, things are not that complicated, because what I do is I see what the cultural tradition has been. Since I belong to that country, I know about people, and so I've borrowed so much from what is already there, you won't believe it. And so when I design something, it looks like what they've had, but it's something also that they know how to build. Because if earth is the best material, and they know exactly how to handle earth. And that is what becomes a winner then, because they feel, yes, if they are taught, they can do it themselves as well. So, like this octagon that you are going to build tomorrow, that is actually a form that is very prevalent in all our deserts. But because there has been displacement, so that has crept into even other areas. So I designed it. A lot of my colleagues, who are very important people in the NGO sector, they say Yasmin is just building shacks. To them it's just shacks, right? But the shacks are really very, very secure, strong structures. But because they're shacks, no, it doesn't threaten the rich. I mean, for me, the biggest threat are the rich, not the poor. So I have to find ways, really devious ways, to be able to do the things that I think are important. But I think if you know the people and if you know what their capabilities are, and if you can make them understand that they'd have power to do what they want to do with it, because they know how to do it, you can do it.
Do you think that there would be certain tools to also use in architectural education to sort of create this sensitivity? So
you want a recipe?
Yeah, maybe a recipe. Yes, architectural students. How could you create?
Well, the first thing is you have to give up your ego. Okay, no ego, and you must be ready to learn from the poor, and give up your ideas about the poor. They may be poor, but they have lots of capabilities. So as long as you can understand their strengths, and you can understand the materials. And you have to be driven by this whole carbon factor. Then you'll do the right thing anyway. Yeah?
Talking about ego, actually, I want to ask you, so there's like a misconception that after 2000, when you retired, people saw, before the Pakistan earthquake in 2005, saw that phase as a different phase of your architecture, and after the earthquake as humanitarian architecture, as you said. But I want to ask you, as we also hear, there are some projects that, like Lari Residence as well, that there are great sustainable aspects, like the wind catchers, how you created urban gardens, for example. I want to ask you, what design elements did you actually carry to your second phase of architecture, the humanitarian phase, where you still maybe get inspired from it?
You want the whole story of my life here?
Actually, that would be quite nice, yeah.
You have 25 minutes.
I don't know really. You know, I've been very fortunate. I've only worked in Pakistan. I have no experience of any international kind of work at all. But my country has given me so many opportunities to work at so many different levels that it's very difficult to say what did affect and not influence me in my further work. I think my work with women, right from the beginning, from that social housing you talked about, where women are the ones who asked me, they said, well, if you build this for us, where will our chickens go? And my answer was, well, these are the open to sky terraces. You can have your chickens there to give. And why are the chickens important? That is the food for the kids with eggs, right? So it's very important. You can grow vegetables and so on. So I learned to work with people at that time, although I didn't get much of a chance later. But then I was very influenced by Hassan Fatehi. I don't know whether you've heard of him, but he was a great architect, Egyptian, who did wonderful things and worked in mud. And so it's been with me, working with communities and so on. But the problem with architecture is that once you become known, then you start getting those commissions that are very heady. You get a chance to do what you want to do, and then you don't want to leave it. So I was lucky. I decided I want to leave it. Mm-hmm. And so then again, I shouldn't say I was lucky. I mean, it was no luck because this disaster happened. But I got a chance to work there. Or I got a chance to work as UNESCO's national advisor in the Lahore Fort and learned about lime. I had not known about lime. Yeah. So I feel that in many ways, for the work I'm doing now, because that's the closest to me, that's the most rewarding for me, and I really think that it's something very valuable for me. But I feel that every phase of my professional life has somehow prepared me for this. So I was ready to somehow take it on. I didn't know it, but I was. Mm-hmm. And so, and I was lucky that I was able to do it.
No, exactly.
It's not everybody who gets a chance, right?
Yeah, true.
Can I ask you one more question about your life? Because over the years we've been working here with several NGOs, and I think what I learned from them was that all the good intentions for rebuilding after earthquakes, for example, they often don't work if you don't really understand the people and the climate and the culture. And then they also, of course, find that out and say, let's go to a participatory design approach. So you go there, you talk to the people, and Miriç, I know you also did that in Turkey, and we even have some students working in Ukraine who also did that, and it works. I think it works well, but it works very slowly. Huh? And now you are telling us that you are making these huge numbers of buildings. And how did you find out how to do that? And
I'm an architect.
So are we, but we are struggling.
I don't know. I think it's again. I think I've been just very lucky in my life. Okay, I have to tell you that, and I've had the opportunities that a lot of people don't get. I mean, there was no reason the flood to be so devastating. But it allowed me the possibility of trying out my holistic model, which I hadn't done before, or couldn't do it in that way. And then because when I did my $150 really sustainable model, which could have, with $450 million, you could have accommodated all the people who are destitute, but no, nobody wanted to invest money into that. So then I said, okay, let's do it without any money. And when I did it, it happened to work. I mean, we are fairly well into the whole thing. They are food secure, they are flood secure, and they have something like 50,000 houses have been built by them with no money, and 600 schools have been built by them with no money. So I think I don't know how to say it, but if you feel in your heart that you're on the right path and you do the right thing, then things happen.
Yeah. It's so interesting because for me sometimes it's frustrating that you work on a project and then if you're really lucky, your project ends up on a website about architecture, but you only talk about the people, and it's much more interesting, maybe, or that's I guess what we are working for, not for empty buildings.
I'm also wondering about one thing: is that when you come to such an area, and you as a big architect, and then you can expect that the people who are there and see you have expectations, but in a way you also want them to learn and to build their own. How do you prevent sort of this false hope that it can be created at the moment?
Luckily, they have no idea what kind of an architect I am. They couldn't care less, actually, which is the best thing. Yeah. They only know I'm known as Mai Gariba, which is mother of the poor. That's it.
You're seen as mother of the poor there.
Yeah. And that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not known as the architect there. That's how it should be. I mean, I need to relate to them, then they need to relate to me. Yeah?
Yeah. And also talking about hope, looking at everything that's happening in the world. And for me, for example, I have difficulty sleeping at night, thinking about everything and that you want to do something. Do you have troubles with this, and how do you have a way of dealing with this?
Well, always when there's the trouble, the best way to deal with it is go out and do something about it, whatever you can. That's why I was saying, when you see there are injustices, you want to take action.
Yeah.
But when there's ecological injustice, we don't seem to bother. I mean, we happen to live under conditions like you have heat islands, you have urban flooding, and we feel helpless. But why? Why can't we, as communities, rise and say, okay, and if the design factor is there, you can change it, you can make a difference.
Is that maybe also because in the Netherlands, at least, if you know we have sewage, you just flush the toilet and it's solved, and you put out the trash and it goes away, and we build dikes and there are no floods.
But don't you have heat islands now? Yes, you do.
Yeah, of course.
So what are you doing about it?
Yeah, for sure, this is true.
You're still using concrete. I mean, I was very pleased yesterday with the Hotel Arsenal. There's nothing but brick, which is wonderful, because brick is a lovely material. But I find even you have so much concrete. I mean, that's not very good for heat. I mean, that is what makes your heat islands. Mm-hmm. So I mean, we need to take action.
Yeah. Yeah, we are looking into it at the university. Yeah. And do you think, because, we should go to some questions from the audience. Javier, we have some secret
but I can't see them. There's so much light coming from there that I can't see them. So they have to stand
we
and
sort of forgot about the audience. Sorry. Let's go for some questions.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Lucas. I'm studying just now this week, starting at my pre-master architecture. And I had a question about the other parts of the world, where there's also a lot of poverty. I wrote a vision in my portfolio about the favelas in Rio de Janeiro, Buenos Aires. Is this model also possible to put out there, like fix the poverty in Brazil or Argentina?
What's the question? Sorry, I couldn't.
Maybe.
I think whether the model could also be transferred or translated to other parts. For example,
yes, it's a very good question. Yes, I think even my assisted holistic model, which is $150, is still very inexpensive, and it can be done in many countries. So just in November, we had a whole number of villagers who came from Malawi, and the model is going to be replicated in Malawi now. Mm-hmm. Because basically it is really for countries with very little resources. And they also have floods. And they also think, what is a tragedy to me is that so many of these communities live in flood areas, flood plains and flood fringeways, where the land should be very fertile, but there's hunger there and they're starving. It doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of just informing them how they can make use of that floodplain, or tell them how they can build with just local materials. It's really not complicated, but there's nobody to tell them. That's what we need, is people who can inform everybody else how to do these things, Yeah.
So, for me, this is one reason to do the workshop that we are doing, to with the students build the shelter and understand the materials and what is needed to make it work, and maybe even adjust it so that it can also work in a different place.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Also, I think what's very important, I think what you said is we have to look for now alternative materials. Unless we do that, really, I think we're going to be losers. Because climate change is not going away. Disasters are not going to go away. But we have to see how we can live with that but also be able to see how we mitigate everything. And really, more natural materials, more research in materials will be one way to mitigate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good. I mean, and there's somebody working in mycelium.
Yeah.
So that again is something very interesting. So that's good. That's very good.
And the students, so last semester a lot of students, of course, are working on mycelium, and we were working in the biolab, and my students thought it wasn't going quickly enough, so they took all the mycelium home and put it in their oven to grow it there. It was really fun. But I really enjoyed the question. Maybe there's another one, or yeah?
Hi, thank you for the presentation and the whole talk. So you mentioned that 40% of the carbon comes from construction, but that is a majority of it comes from urban cities. So are there learnings from your experience which you think can also be applied to an urban context?
I had a little bit of trouble.
So I'm asking, are there learnings from your experience in Pakistan where, it looked like it was mostly in a rural context where you were helping women build these platforms or housing? Are there learnings from that can be applied to an urban context, like in cities where the majority carbon is created?
No, absolutely. I think it's a very good question, and it's really something that is important because, urban centers are the worst polluters in many ways. So we're working now on my program, and I'm going to present it actually on the 19th in Rotterdam, which is one eco street at a time. And I'm on the 3rd street, and that's next to a slum. So basically, what I'm trying to say is how do you really again bring streets into the purview of the commons? Because these are now community commons, as far as I'm concerned. Plus, the slum needs space, and we have in Karachi alone, we have something like more than 50% people living in slums. So really, first of all, my eco streets are zero flood and zero heat islands. There's no flooding whatsoever there, because I'm using all the elements I talked about, which is absorb the soil, the water into the soil. Have lots of plantations, so I have these lush green forests coming up, Miyawaki style. And it's working because suddenly the air changes. So that's what I call in the cities, because this is the urban degradation is awful. People live under such a condition without thinking they can do anything about it. And that's what I feel is somehow so wrong, because we should be there to tell them, yes, you can do something about this. And they must. There's no reason for people to live in this kind of what I call eco-tyranny. Why should anybody accept it? But they do. Mm-hmm. And that means we need to do something about it. Yep. So with my one eco-street at a time, we've done 3, and I think there are 2 more in the offing, and the worst possible areas. And with the slums, there was this very interesting talk that we heard today at the Global Initiatives. This young architect who'd worked in one of the African countries.
Addis Ababa.
Addis Ababa, where she's talking about, the refuse being in commons. And there was so much stuff there that was lined up in terms of sheets and all kinds of stuff. Now, that is what can be called urban mining. So now we are moving into the slum, and I'm going to try to see now how we can help them to have safer housing. You can't change, you have it all, but you have lots of material that's available. And I don't mind reusing anything really, as long as they reuse. And so we will be telling them how they can mitigate the effect of heat and all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of work that we can do in everywhere there's a need for architects to intervene. And we need to do it in a kind of very with empathy. We can't just go and say, well, this is no good, just destroy it. Well, that doesn't work. Okay? So, yes, there's a lot of work to be done in cities. I agree with you.
Yeah. Another great question.
Yeah.
We have a last question.
Oh, is it the last? Oh, that's
You're the
so
last,
fast.
Nelson.
Actually, it's a follow-up. I guess it's because I'm close to this. It's a follow-up of this question because in terms of demographics, it's because of this, right? So at the turn of the 21st century, Pakistan had 150 million people living there. Currently, there are 250 million. And
in Pakistan.
Yes. In Pakistan, right? Yes. 250 million.
That's right.
And by 2050, it is estimated that there's going to be 350 million people living in Pakistan.
And the way we are going, yes.
Yes. So it's one of the countries experiencing this process of rapid growth, also urban growth, hence the connection with the previous question. And when you show the beautiful systems that you have for zero carbon communities, the question indeed is how can we address the challenge of providing 100 million homes in 25 years, trying to be as much as possible eco-friendly, but also addressing the urgency. So I guess that my question also concerns, I think Marisha also talked about this, how we can have a kind of a trade-off between being participatory, listening to the voices of the people, but that takes time. But also we need this urgency. We need to find places for 100 million people only in Pakistan. What's the way to move into that direction?
Well, of course, a very complex question, okay? And you can address it in many different levels. First of all, this whole migration from rural to urban has to stop. But it will never stop unless we focus on the rural area as well. So I'm hoping in the area that we are working in, those people are not going to urban areas because they are able to survive pretty well in where they are. So I agree with you that population pressure is too much, but I also have to say that it's mainly because there's so much poverty. If we can address the root cause, which is poverty, then I think there'll be less increase in population. So we have to be attacking at many different fronts, which we are not doing right now. And somehow people feel that poverty is something that nobody can address because, there's economic crunch, there's all kinds of other issues. But the fact is that people are ready to improve their own lives. And as I've shown, with very little money, you can do it. So we don't need money, actually. We just need the determination to do it right, and it'll happen. Are you from Pakistan?
No, from Portugal.
Oh, from Portugal, that's okay. Fair enough. But I was just going to say, if you were in Pakistan, I would say, well, why don't you go back and do something about it?
That is a great invitation. I have the terrible job of finishing. It's my obligation to finish things on time. I can hardly tell you how much I appreciated everything you've told us today. Ideas of, I would say, of dignity for starters. No? I think it was really inspiring. Marriage said that she has trouble sleeping lately because of everything happening in the world. I was during your talk. I was really happy because I don't have trouble sleeping, but every morning I am a little bit challenged to turn the radio on and listen to the next attack that bigots and egos do on the world. And actually, these 1.5 hours have been a really call to hope, a call to action as well. So I would like to thank you very much for, at least in my case, having made me feel a little bit more relaxed and less anxious about my feelings every morning. So I want to thank you very, very much. Thank you, Yasmeen. Let me just, it is my obligation also to let you know that our conversations with Yasmeen will go on during the week with the workshop that Job and Yasmeen are conducting until Friday. Next week, the new institute takes over, and there will be a conversation between Yasmeen, Marina Tabassum, our professor also here, and Pavinder coming from India. So I invite everyone to join us as well at the new institute. We are not organizing that, but we would like you to enjoy the presence of Yasmeen for at least until she stays here these days in the Netherlands. Changing topic, I would like also to take this opportunity to let you know about our next activities in the coming weeks. I'm just going to mention that a group of mostly women in the faculty are organizing a feminist week, which will take place in the week of the 2nd of March, if I'm not wrong. So you are more than welcome to get information about it and please participate. We are, as BK Talks, participating with a BK Talks which is called Pedagogies of Feminism this time. This is also an occasion to show you all our new identity for the spring. Our plan is to bring the Oostserre back to the polder where it belongs throughout Indigenous Intelligence, which is the exhibition that we are preparing. In any case, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Yasmin, again so much for giving us a little bit more hope. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.